Hello, welcome back. Sean here, Mountains Garage. If I look exactly like I did in the last video about case savers, it's because I just finished shooting it. And I worked for a few minutes, got ready to install my ATD, automatic transmission design, Hipster, first gear leave valve body in this transmission. And I thought, because I just put a first and second gear leave Transbrake valve body in the last one, the instructions are right here. Let's compare them. And first, let's talk about them a little bit. There's two guys, I believe they're brothers, Charles and Michael McCormick. I'm not sponsored by ATD, but they are my go-to for valve bodies now. I finally saved up enough money I can buy, 4 or 5, 6 at a time. 4 or 5 at a time. I haven't bought 6 at a time yet. That'd be a lie. And that's handy for me because it's going to take them a few weeks to fill the order because they're wicked busy. That way I got stuff in stock, and before I run out, I can reorder. So I buy a few of each. Those are the two that I stock. Part number wise, people always want to know the part number. Both valve bodies start with 22748. The first gear leave ends in B. The first and second gear leave is a -1A. So 22748-1A, or the first gear only is 22748B. Now, these brothers are smart. They're the kind of people you like to be associated with because they're smarter than me. And I'm speaking for myself. I like being associated with people that are smarter than me because you learn stuff. They're at a different level. They can look, they make valve bodies. I don't make valve bodies. I just rebuild transmissions. They're building parts. They're designing parts. They're always online on the transmission forums helping people. If you post a picture of your old valve body by who knows who made it, they can tell you how it works and who made it probably. I mean, these guys are smart. So when I started my channel, I wanted to share information, and it always reminds me of my first day on the job, 15 years old. There was 3 or 4 guys in the shop that were a pleasure to work with. They didn't mind helping the 15-year-old kid with a tiny toolbox, but there was one guy that was one of those guys. I don't want to use foul language, but let's just say not the guy you look forward to seeing every day. He was insecure, and he was so afraid you were going to learn something. He didn't understand that a rising tide raises all boats. So I enjoy knowing people that are smarter than me, that are better at things than I am. That shouldn't offend you. That should make you want to do better. That's my story right there. I just want to do better. So knowing guys like Charles and Michael, I don't know them. I've never met them. I hope to someday. But, they'll pick up the phone. They'll answer questions. They're online helping you out. Just good people and an excellent product. So this is my go-to now. Again, they can fill the order, and it's an awesome product. And it's pretty. My God, look at this thing. Made in Wisconsin. You don't have to go much further than the packaging. Everything is in a nice zippered bag. The box is pretty. It's packed like it's going to the moon. It just reeks of quality. And another thing I like about it is it's minimal modifications to the transmission itself. You have to drive a 1/4-inch check ball, a stock Turbo 400 check ball, down inside the reverse servo. And I called and asked one day, why was I doing that? Because on a stock case, the rush of oil can pop the pipe plug out that's further downstream. An aftermarket case, you don't have to drive the check ball in because there's a screw-in pipe plug on the other end of the passage. So that's why you drive a check ball down in the reverse servo. And it tells you how to do that. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The first and second gear leave valve body, you have to push the button in reverse to back up. That's common with a lot of valve bodies. The first gear leave valve body, if you put it in R for reverse, it backs up without doing a thing. Now, for street strip stuff, that is cool. One less thing to do. You don't have to push the button. Or if you're racing, for instance, you just did a long burnout and you got to back up, you just put it in neutral and push the button, and this one will back up in neutral. So believe it, I haven't tried this one. This one doesn't say it backs up in neutral. It says to engage reverse, to put the shifter in reverse and push the brake button. No line pressure drop, solid reverse. To engage the reverse in the first gear leave only, it says either put the shifter in reverse or put the shifter in neutral and push the button. The Transbrake employs standard reverse when the shifter is in R and safety reverse when shifter is in neutral. So it'll back up like a normal transmission in reverse, and it'll back up with safety neutral in neutral. So that's the difference right off the bat between the first gear leave, the B, and the first and second gear leave, which is the A. I'm just now reading this because in my mind, all racing parts have no warranty. I wouldn't dream of asking for a warranty on a product. However, this one has a 12-month warranty against defects. I mean, that's pretty handy if, let's just say, the solenoid failed. In theory, they'd give you another one. Now, I just read that for the first time, so I'm not the type of guy that would return something. So if it fails, I'll just do something. Installation-wise, some very simple steps. Like all Turbo 400s, you drill a 1/16 bleed hole in the direct drum. I've covered that a few times. That gets rid of, it helps release the brake for one thing, and it also gets rid of, or helps to fight centrifugal apply when that drum is spinning in low gear, not applied. Sometimes the oil can apply the clutches and start to burn them. So with the bleed hole, it'll help throw that out, lubricate the inside of the case, I guess. So. And also in the direct drum, you're going to install 16 heavy-duty return springs. And they're pretty stiff. In a previous video, I talked about a heavy-duty spring retainer. You don't need one, but I did find one. Instead of 4 locking pieces for the snap ring, there's 6, and allegedly a thicker material. I have not measured that. I'll cover that in a different video because I don't know where I put it, or even if they're here yet, but I did buy a couple just out of curiosity. But I've never used anything but the stock spring retainer with the heavy springs, 0 issues. The pressure regulator, and again, I'm talking both valve bodies. If there's a difference, I'll mention it. They give you a spring to put in the pressure regulator. You don't use any horseshoe shims. This spring by itself is all you need. The spring appears to be the same for both valve bodies, same color. I don't know that. I typically install the whole kit as it comes, so only they could answer that, and they probably would. You have to grind the modulator valve, which becomes a scheduling valve or the brake valve, whatever you want to call it, because the modulator function is gone. This is going to be on the end of your Transbrake solenoid, actually applying the brake. And they give you a chart of what a stock valve looks like and what you have to do to it. You have to grind this first high lobe down to, well, they show you almost even lobe height, it says, I guess even with the rest of them. And the second to the last one, depending on which end you view it from, you just grind to 45 in it. The stock one has a small 45, or you just continue that all the way around. Now, if you're really good, you can just do this with the grinding wheel on your bench grinder, and then I polish it and lay it afterwards. It's really simple to grind one flat on that and then grind a 45 on that end of the valve. And then when you put it in the case, they give you a picture, 1, 2, 3, 4 of the ports you're going to see, and you apply it, and it tells you which ones have to connect in each position on and off of the brake. So very simple modification, piece of cake. There is a small plastic check valve already greased in to the first gear lead brake, which this one is, and the modified manual valve. That's just the way it comes out of its nice little bag. In the 1-2 brake, there's a shuttle ball, the bigger one, that you install in the valve body, and you can put the separator plate on, and when you carefully flip it over to install it, the ball will stay in place. It's absolutely nothing to it. Back to the brake valve for a minute, or the old modulator valve that you modified. There's a tiny spring that goes behind it. And you want to make sure, That's why I polish the valve, that when you're stroking the solenoid that it's returning every time. So I do that first while I'm still looking at, I can check my porting like it tells me to, and I can make sure it returns all the way. They're really good about explaining the wire requirement to wire the Transbrake. It draws 8 amps. You need a 10 or 15 amp inline fuse. You need wiring, 12 or 14 gauge that has about a 20 amp capacity. So good to know. Some Transbrake valve bodies, most actually, give you a giant spring in the rear servo, actually on the accumulator. They have you take the rings off the accumulator, but they're still using this giant spring for brake release. Not ATD. You leave this stuff completely out of the transmission. The only return spring is the one actually on the rear servo piston. And that seems to work just fine. Again, whoever figured that out must be a genius. But I like leaving parts out of my Turbo 400. The less parts you put in, the better they work. They recommend, like most all Transbrake valve bodies do, that you use Teflon sealing rings on the pump and the center support. And there's a handy little note here that the valve body itself is dual feed design. It's your choice whether you leave off the second seal down on the center support. I leave it off because I'm gonna save that, and when I've done a few transmissions, I have a full set of rings to do another transmission. So I'm not gonna put an extra seal in there when I don't have to. Once again, the more parts you leave out, the better. But as far as their valve bodies go, they say the transmission will function either way. But you have the direct drum out, I'd go ahead and take it off. But it's nice that they clarified that, so you know. And the last instruction in the instruction pamphlet is smoke the competition. That always makes me crack up. It's always good to have a sense of humor. So in about 20 steps or less, which a lot of these steps are duplicate if you're overhauling the unit anyway, which I do. If you brought me your transmission and say we put this brake in, I would still go all the way down. They tell you the minimum steps to just install the brake. I like to go all the way down to make sure that the rest of the unit is ready for a piece of equipment like this. So, really nice piece, simple installation, and I don't think you'll find anybody that has anything bad to say about this, brand of Transbrake valve body. So, I hope you got something out of it. I'm gonna shut the camera off and jam it in there now. I'm done talking about it, and I'll move on to another area next time. Take it easy. Thanks for watching.